All
Oh
right.
my.
Oh,
There
Rex,
was
you
a
want to start?
song years ago. Who kicked to the light plug out of the socket and left me sitting in the dark all night? So you can say who. Well, never mind. Let's just go on. That was, it's just a pattern interrupt. Forget it.
I
Nicely done.
And welcome to Random Thoughts with Rex.
My thoughts are truly random.
Rex, why don't you, as long as you're talking, go ahead and take it away with our topic here, buddy.
Well, there's nothing more to say. I mean, you made the point. People give their power away either purposefully or unintentionally. We are used to being trained to do it. Our entire upbringing is one of being a lump of flesh and looking around at the world and absorbing everything that's going on around us for at least the first couple of years, and then into the next primary years, until we're 5 or 6 or 7, where we're just a sponge absorbing everything. And then from pretty much that point on, or at least into our teenage years, we start just validating the things that we've already been conditioned to, and most all of that is that the world is this some kind of place that's separate from you, and that it can have power over you, and that you have to follow the rules, and you have to pay attention, and you have to do whatever you need to do to be a good student, a good citizen, a good child, a good parent, a good this, a good that, a good that, and none of it, if you look at the educational system, has anything to do with putting power back in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, in your pocketbook, in anything at all. There's no practical education for how do you manage your money, how do you make money, how do you think about things, how do you control your, how do you resolve problems and issues. And I mean, they claim, well, that's not the domain of public education. The domain of public education is to make you a good citizen. What is a good citizen? Somebody who follows orders. So we've been conditioned to not claim our power, and sadly, when people do claim their power, often it's abusive power. They are so used to giving it away that when they claim it back, it's with violence. And I don't mean necessarily just physical violence, but it's like, damn you, I will do it my way. Leave me the F alone. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but people think they do. And the whole issue, boundary issues, and all the kinds of things that people talk about are oftentimes, that wanting desperately to claim back their power, and yet so much of it is silly. I mean, because the power is already yours. You're just not using it. You're giving it away. It's like people who go, I don't have enough energy. Well, hey, moron, you are energy. There ain't a part of you that isn't energy. So
Right, so
how
let's
you
be
use
clear.
it, so I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Same with your power. They go, people have taken my power. No, you still have your power. You just aren't using it. You're not doing anything with it. So you spoke
Yep.
truth. You spoke volumes, and I hope I added some value to that. But
You did, Rex, but I want to ask you something, because a lot of people,
wait a second. What makes you think you can ask me anything? Just because you have a question, I'm supposed to answer it? I
See,
refuse to give my power to you in that way. No, go ahead,
I
please.
can't see you, but can you see me?
Yeah, but I've been doing that to you all along.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead, please.
No, Rex, seriously, people, as with all of us, people come to us to a certain extent for us to assist them in some areas, or to share our experiences, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But there are times when people assume that I have a power. Do you dissuade people when they start going in that direction? Do you tell them, listen, I'm not, don't look at me like I've got power over you or anything like that? Do you find it's important to dissuade them if they start thinking in those terms? Because that's backwards thinking, right?
No, I pretty much say, look, Aunt, I'll squash you if you don't do it my way. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Title of Rex's next book. That's his next book.
What's the title?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you're either going to do if you ask me for advice and I give you advice and you don't follow the advice, what was my advice worth?
Right, right.
Why even ask? I mean, if you're looking, I mean, this is the problem with people. They'll go, I need answers, and then they go to 50 different people for different answers, and then they choose the one they think is the best answer. But how would they know?
Well, they don't.
Well, exactly, but they think they do, and so they just perpetuate the same thing. But no, I don't I don't pull the power plug on them. I don't, or the power play on them. You know, you love people, you accept them where they're at, you understand, help them understand that they too can discover new things about themselves, that anything that's happened to them in their past is their past, and there's no need to carry it around needlessly, but to understand that every moment we could be born again and born new and have a different experience. So it's to try to love and accept and allow them to be who they are. You probably heard me say a lot of times, Jesus didn't sit there and go, "Hey, I'm the big JC. I walked on water. I raised the dead. I healed you. So, praise my name." I mean, you didn't hear that coming from him. You hear it come from other people, but you don't hear that coming from him in the Bible. Buddha didn't walk around going, "I am Buddha, and you're
Right.
not." You know, so no. I mean, when people are here's the rub. When someone's ready, they're ready. But before they're ready, they're not ready. And they may many times attempt to be ready. They're getting ready to get ready kind of thing, but they aren't yet there. But once it's there, the world shifts for them. That's why, when the student is ready, the teacher appears or the lesson
Yeah.
appears, the circumstance appears. But until they are, that's why, we've taught people, we've conditioned people to color outside the lines before they've learned to color in the lines.
Mm-hmm.
We in other words, in the old days of master disciple, or like a Jesus or a Buddha, or apprentice and fellow crafts, and all that kind of stuff, there was a seasoning process where you spent time with an exemplar, a role model, somebody who was a master at their craft, whether that was meditation or stone cutting, or woodworking. But you spent time with them to learn the craft, to learn the nuances, to make all the mistakes, and to get the experience to go from being a novice, an apprentice, a neophyte, somebody who was just learning it, to become, a fellow craft, somebody who had some chops but wasn't yet a master. And then they went through that process, making the mistakes and still gaining wisdom and guidance until they became a master, where they then, would take on their own apprentices. So there was a process of transformation, whether that was material or spiritual, that we don't have today as much as we could benefit from it. What we have is, all these people telling everybody 20 different things of what they should do, and then people cherry pick the one that is most comfortable for them. And if it's most comfortable for you, guess what? You're not leaving your comfort zone, so you're not really stretching, so you're not really changing. It's just like going, you know what? I only wear red and blue, so hand me that blue gown or hand me that red shirt, and I go on. Aren't I a colorful person? And people say, but there's green and brown and black and white and yellow and gray and all these other things. And they go, I just wear red and blue. Those are my choices. So give me something that fits in that choice. Well, you know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of like you imagine a starving person out in the desert, hasn't eaten for 5 weeks, and you present them some food and some water, and they go, "I'm sorry, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat that stuff."
Then you're not hungry.
Or I'm a meat eater. I won't eat a plant. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, in other words, if you have a need and something's presented, what do you do with it? And people will go, nope, not for me, because they think it. It's that overthinking process. They think. So I'm not saying to give up judgment or give up wisdom, but I'm saying there's a certain part of us that has to suspend our own knowledge in favor for something new and different, for something beyond what we know, in order to go into the unknown. And we can't do it if we're always playing it safe by making choices the way we choose. I tell this story. When I was 18, I met a guy who terrified me. He was always challenging me. I was terrified. I mean, I was physically terrified. I would get sick and scared by being with him, because he would ask me philosophical, meditative like questions, and I'm like, I don't know what this guy actually wants. It must be something, sinful, not something, wonderful. And all he was trying to do was wake me up. He was just asking me stuff, but I wasn't ready to hear any of it. All I thought was, this guy wants to molest me somewhere, which he didn't. But 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 my point is, because I was thinking and assigning, and then he would say, do this, and I would do some of it, but not all of it, because no, I won't go that far. So if you set conditions on your own growth that way, on the one hand, it's very unlikely you're going to change as much as you could. On the other hand, there are people who are gullible who will do anything that anybody says, and that you have to watch out for too. So it's there's wisdom comes from experience, and if you've been gullible and you followed people, you might want to be more choosy, but it doesn't mean to completely turn your back on you have to. I want to say you have to find your own balance, and you have to find your own way. I'm not the ultimate authority for somebody's life, but I am a provocateur.
Oh, you are that. You are that, Rex.
Oh,
Absolutely.
fuck off.
No,
I am
thanks.
not. I say it, but you can't.
You got no power over me, brother.
I love it. No, but I mean, but you this is so. You guys are all so wonderful. So I'm going to listen.
All right, Rex. Thanks, man. Barry, this takes on a meaning with you too, especially with the work you do with couples. That a lot people are always assigning power to the other person in a relationship, and it gives you a good person to blame when shit's not going right, right?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people like to be the victim because they don't want to be responsible.
Exactly.
So that means it's not just romantic relationships, but family dynamics, business relationships, all sorts of things where people are going to say, well, if I don't take responsibility, I can't be the one being at blame. Therefore, it's their fault, and I can spend my time bitching and moaning about them. Because for some people, bitching and moaning is their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So the challenge in that way of paradigm is that people aren't going to take responsibility. That's why sometimes divorces aren't done by conscious choice. They're done by how painful can it get, which means they're not choosing from willingness, saying, you know what, this is working, let's do something different, and maybe use a mediator or just simply separate. Most divorces, unfortunately, are combative because it's a wrongful decision. They're both arguing like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're right. All this stuff goes on. So relationships definitely are one of the crucibles for understanding this, for sure. A couple of things I want to throw in there. Actually, go way back to the beginning when we talked about politics. One quote I heard from somebody talking about this said that the problem is that most politicians don't want to represent, they want to rule, which makes things very different over there. So that's one thing you got to be aware of. Something that Rex said I want to get on, because these were on my head floating around earlier. The thing about the education system that's interesting for me in my work is that we don't have financial planning and job start training and stuff at schools. We also have sex education at school, but no relationship education at school. Are we doing things backwards?
Yeah, good point.
So it's like, if a school brought in, someone like me or a therapist or other educational people about relationships, before you talk about sex, it would make so much more sense to me. It just cracks me up. Anyway, so back to this relationship piece. I remember learning this in a seminar back in 1984. So it's been a long time. This one, I've had it over the years. Is that we have this problem where we think we have to do certain things. You have to take out the garbage, or you have to go get the car serviced. But the thing about it is that when it comes to say you have to get the car serviced, and you get frustrated by doing that, you say it because I have to do it, because if I don't get it, the car's going to break down. And if it breaks down, I can't get to work. And if I can't get to work, I don't get paid. If I don't get paid, I don't get food in the fridge. It's like you have this domino effect of all these things that go wrong. The reality is you don't have to do it. You choose to because you want to have food in the fridge. And the difference of understanding is when you choose it, you have power. When you choose to do something, you're in control. But a lot of times we don't want to take that dominion because, again, we don't want to be blamed or make a mistake or something else. So we'd rather say, well, I have to do that because otherwise, somebody's going to look at me wrong. Like, no. In relationship, especially when the trash doesn't get taken out, the next level down from that as well, then it's going to start smelling. If it starts smelling, you're going to get bugs. And if you start getting bugs, the food's going to go bad. It's that, like, this domino effect of escalating challenges that you don't take care of. And the thing about it is you're getting stuck between, you're driven by have to, which is not powerful. When you start making a choice, saying, I'm going to take out the trash because I feel like it's going to make a difference in my relationship, because oftentimes in couples, it can be that simple thing that drives them apart because one person thought the other side trash out and they never did. So I'm talking about these as examples. In relationships, we oftentimes are like the Princess and the Pea, the idea that one little thing undermines a relationship for both one of the partners. So when you start taking responsibility and taking your power back, so I'm going to take care of this piece of the relationship, it makes the relationship much healthier for both partners. But it does take both partners to do that.
Well, absolutely. I love what you said about kind of like, it's your choice to do things. But a simple shift in language. I have to get my car done. Or you could say, I choose to get my car done. Now, that's a whole different way of taking responsibility and feeling good. I tell people this when they're dealing with addictions and other issues. There's this thing about I can't drink and I can't smoke. But the minute you say that, you're becoming like you've lost something. You're a victim.
Yep.
But if I say I choose not to, that's empowering.
There you go. Right.
So just shifting the words a little bit. Also, like when Rex was talking, I was thinking, Barry, you probably agree with me. If you guys want to understand the master-student relationship, most brilliant book you can read is Illusions by Richard Bach.
Favorite books.
It's just such a brilliant look at a master who says, well, I'm not really a master to you. I mean, your choice is to follow or not follow, do or not do, or whatever. And it's just brilliantly written. You'll agree with that one, right, Barry?
Absolutely. Also with the Way of Peaceful Warrior is another good book for that understanding too, because it's reminding us that we don't have to be the student all the time. In fact, oftentimes we find people to teach us, so we become masters. But a lot of people don't choose that. They'd rather be the victim, never learn anything. So yeah.
I have another book suggestion.
Yes.
It's called The Book of Life. No, not my book. It's called Live with a Real Master sometime. Nothing beats the experience. We can read about it, we can talk about it, we watch movies about it, we can do everything, but until you experience it, that's a whole different thing. It's kind of like reading all the books about love and sex, but never actually having any love or sex.
Indeed.
Well, I'm excited that Christy's here tonight because, we've got a doctor in the house.
What a segue.
And we've got a shrink in the house. We got somebody that actually went to school that knows a little bit about, when they say, I'm going to give it to Scott, but I just had to say that I'm glad Christy's here for this topic.
Well, I know just listening to Christy from before we've been on the show, I know you're certainly a proponent of not being a victim and stuff like that, but it seems like it's rampant and it's not getting better. It feels like it's getting a little bit worse, but what do you think?
Yeah. So, I deal with this day in and day out, right? Just in the nature of the work that I do, right? With people coming into my office. So, I am a practicing psychologist and practice very differently, very uniquely. But at the end of the day, people come in complaining about something, right? Something in their life isn't going well. They're missing something. They're needing something, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
And inevitably, it always comes down to, I'm saying my mind is going in so many directions right now because there's actually there's so many things I want to say about this topic, but I'm going to kind of try to put it in order. But
that's why you fit right in. It's just this stream of consciousness.
I'm just going to go all over with this.
Every one of us, you wind us up and let us go. There we go.
Well, but you see, ultimately, as I'm saying this, right, ultimately, it all boils down to the fact that right now, as a collective, people are disconnected from themselves. They are disconnected from their truth. They are disconnected from the essence of what it means to be human. They are disconnected from the human as it relates to all that is and who we are. Rex said earlier, energy. What does that mean, right? And this is why, my whole shtick about rewilding is essential because we have got to remember who the hell we are so that we can remember our roots and rekindle our instinctual and essential wisdom, right? So that we can thrive. So here's this topic, this quote that you've put up, right? Emerson's quote, nothing external has any power over us, right? So yeah, we are a part of everything that happens, right? But we are ultimately responsible for the way we put ourselves in the world. And ultimately, everything goes back to us making choices, right? Everything is about choice. Life is choice. It's our choice. Everything can come back to us. So, when I sit in my office and a new client comes in and they say, well, I'm so miserable, right? Because my husband's an asshole and my kids act out and, life, politics suck and, the weather is dreary and whatever. Everyone's got a reason for something, right? They put blame. They create a story. They create a narrative, right? And that narrative becomes their alibi for everything, right? And this is what they then hang their hat on. And so what they don't realize is happening is that in the context of that narrative, and we could get into, where that narrative came from, right? Doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's the thing that disconnects them from their true self, right? And keeps them in persona, okay? But ultimately, they are making themselves helpless. They are rendering themselves helpless by saying that everything they feel is somebody else's responsibility, is somebody else's problem, right? Well, if my husband, didn't do this or that, I would be happier. If we lived in a warmer climate, I would be happier, right? So they create that story. That's what they hold on to, and they become attached, right? The Buddhist teachings around this are so key here, where the root of all suffering is attachment. What do we get attached to? I call it, we get attached to people, places, and plans, right? With people, we get attached to having certain people in our lives. We get attached to who those people are to us, their roles, right? The story of who they are, right? Places, we get attached to not just the literal place of where we live, but we get attached to certain places in time also, right? We see this with parents when they want their, it's like, I want to freeze my kid in time at this developmental stage, right? The place that they're at in their life. We also get attached to plans, circumstances, the way we want things to be, the way we hope things to be, the story, the picture we have it, right? And ultimately, those attachments lead us to create expectations, and those expectations end up leading us to suffer, right? Ultimately, if we retrace our steps, it all started with the choice we made to make that attachment, right? Yeah. So ultimately, when we are making ourselves a victim of somebody else's circumstance, we are rendering ourselves helpless and fundamentally forgetting who we are and what our place is in all that is, right? We are forgetting that we could look at something and we have a decision to make about how we perceive that. I'm reminded now of, there's that Japanese proverb, right, that states, the noise does not disturb you, you disturb the noise. And I love that proverb. It speaks to me on so many levels, because I hope I got it right? The noise does not disturb you, you disturb the noise. I think I said that right. Ultimately, what that's all about is that, we get upset by the noise, right? And I'll make a silly, stupid example. Oh, my husband chews with his mouth open, right? I heard this in my office today, right? Look, right? So
divorce him.
Right. He chews with his mouth open. I can't stand the noise. Well, but you're the one who's disturbing the peace by your resistance to the noise, right? Can we, and then this leads, into, the importance of, can we meet life from this place of equanimity? Can we see things for what they really are, which is neutral, right? Can we see the world with eyes of neutrality, so that we don't say, okay, these things are happening to me. These are things that are just happening. They're not even happening for me. A lot of people say, oh, things happen for me. Guess what? Things are just happening, period, end of story, right? That's the reality of the unfolding, So if we can learn, and this is, a lot of the work that I do is, how can we get to a place where we recognize, okay, you want calm and peaceful, you create that, right? You want to go with the flow, well, then be the flow, right? If you're miserable, you're choosing to do that. It has nothing to do with who's in your life and the choices they make and all of that, right? We are these these powerful beings, right? We have agency, we have choice, we are all part of all that is, right? But we have the capacity to take a step back and look at things and say, okay, I could be content no matter what's going on if I can see with eyes of neutrality, right? And
Right.
that's hard when we've been living with a lot of stories and a lot of narratives, right? That color our vision so that we don't see things for what they really are. We see them how we expect them to be, how we want them to be. We attach to the way we think they should be.
I want to make sure we draw, because when you say the word, we look at things with neutrality.
Yeah.
We don't. I don't want people to get the idea that it's about separating yourself emotionally from everything. And neutral does not mean uncaring or unfeeling. I just want to make sure people know that. It's it's like, well, I'm going to use the big word acceptance, which gets tossed around and used so wrong. It's so wrong what people do with the word acceptance. A lot of people know how to judge. They're not quite in the acceptance. It's like if I say, listen, you're an asshole, but I'll accept you. That's not acceptance. That's judgment.
Right.
My favorite definition of acceptance is to look upon with favor, which basically is everything is exactly what it should be in that moment, in that time, and so am I. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. I don't want people to get, because sometimes people think neutrality means whatever. That's not what you're saying.
No.
Right?
Can I jump in and add a couple of things? Because I think this.
Sure.
Well, no. You both. Everybody's making such wonderful points, and but what gear is used most in transmissions is neutral. Because you go from park to drive, you go through neutral. If you're sitting at a stoplight, you're in neutral essentially. That kind of thing. So your neutral is a valued position, and the point that you're making is that it's not uncaring. It doesn't have to be uncaring. It's a place where you're not moving forward or backward. You're just being present. You're just right where you are.
Isn't neutral like a pause too? Like you're taking a pause,
Exactly. Like you could take a pause from what's going on. Absolutely. So the biggest problem with a lot of people, I agree, is that they don't get into neutral. That's why I yelled pattern interrupt earlier. You interrupt patterns in order to put somebody back into a neutral space. Now, the lady that you talked about with, who said, I don't like my husband chewing with his mouth open. It's lucky she didn't come to me. I'd say you're goddamn lucky that somebody's willing to eat around you. And you for so many years,
the title of another attitude, book.
Especially with your attitude and your sniveling kind of, I don't like people with chewing with their mouth open. Because what if he dies?
Yeah, right.
What if he leaves you? Would it matter that he chewed with his mouth open? What's more important? So
yeah.
But that's forcing a choice. It's reframing a situation or forcing a choice. But the point is, most people don't understand that thank God that your biggest problem in the world is that somebody chews with their mouth open and you don't like it. So, there's so much people. But it's a choice. It's a choice to being annoyed with what Christy's saying. It's a choice to let your day be ruined because somebody else is doing something.
And somebody else would be happy to have that problem.
Well, indeed. For all the people who sit and eat alone, who wish to God they had somebody to sit with, would go, give me anybody to, So there's just, this is why I say what we were talking about is people overthink things in a way that doesn't add value to them and doesn't free them up because we're so conditioned to think along certain lines. What Christy was saying also, things just are. They just always are. We add the meaning. We put the label. We put the judgment on it. We decide whether something's attractive or not. We decide whether something's meaningful or not, or purposeful or not, or likable or not. That's all on us. Whatever happens, just happens. And if the person chewing with their mouth open were the most god-awful, wonderful, handsome, delightful, beautiful, whatever, you might go, oh, isn't that adorable? Look at how they do. I'm just saying, anything is possible if you get into that neutral spot that Christy's mentioning. You get into that place where you can begin to see you're not moving one way or the other, but you're open and available to what else might be possible. Then you can actually choose. That's why earlier I said choose to choose, because most people don't even choose to choose.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why we love this show called As We All See It, because this is us seeing it all these different facets, and people forget there's many ways to see things.
Mhm.
And that's where people need to start opening their eyes. There's many ways to see things, and people are so stuck in seeing it just one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's going over to somebody's house, and you go to somebody's house, they invite you over for dinner, and you get there, and their kitchen's a little bit messy, and their living room's got stuff in it, and it's just kind of a chaotic mess. But that's my assignment of what it is. That's my perspective of it. It's got nothing to do with the reality. The reality is they're living in it, and they think everything is perfectly fine, and that belongs there, and that belongs there, and that belongs there, and everything's right where it should be. And if they came to my house, they'd probably be like, "How can you find anything? You know, you got all your artwork and your guitars everywhere." And it's but that's everything. That's everything that way. We assign our comfort level to everything else, and if it doesn't match our comfort level, it upsets us. And then that's where we disturb the noise.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
white noise from some people makes them go to sleep. White noise from other people makes them want to tear their hair out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
may I
that
share-
one.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead,
just
Brett.
wanted to share an experience. Many, many years ago, I was in the jungles of Panama. You know, one of these, like, it's 120 degrees and it's raining and it's 100, you know, I mean, it's just dripping sweat. We're trying to get these Jeeps through, you know, mud and everything else. And we stop at this Asian American living in Panama house, and it's made of designer brick. So it's all, you know, hollowed brick with bug nets everywhere and lights, you know, in the middle of the jungle. And we go in, and he's prepared at 1:00 in the morning, spaghetti dinner for us. And every insect in the world was in our food.
So
Well,
protein.
yeah, see, that's just it. But you know what? We ate it, and we never said anything about the bugs.
Yeah.
Well, of course not.
That's
You need
where
protein.
No, but that's where we were. It's like being in that person's messy house with a kitchen. You know, we were grateful to be able to eat. I mean, I opened up a sugar bowl, and this huge moth flew out of it. You know, and I was like, "Whoa, pretty impressive." I mean, I didn't say anything at the time, but I mean, it was like, wow. You know, and bugs were clinging to everything around us, inside and outside the nets, and we just moved the bug away and ate the spaghetti. You know, I mean, it was his gift to us. Were we going to go, hey, asshole, why did you clean the bugs up out of this place before you served us food? I mean, we're in his, you know, in his home in a different country, and he's giving us a gift at 1:00 in the morning. He didn't have to do any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It does. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense, Rex. You want to be in Panama, but you're upset because it's not as clean as your freaking living room. It's
Right.
Keep your ass home.
If I want to be in Panama, I got to be all of Panama, whatever it is. Christy, what did you want to add there?
Yes.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, again, Scott, based on what you were saying before, it's like it goes back to that idea of attachments, right? We're so attached to our preferences. I remember one of my teachers saying to me once, you know, the way, right? He said, the way isn't difficult to those who are unattached to their preferences, right? And it made so much sense. Like, people spend an inordinate amount of time trying to pursue what they like and trying to avoid what they don't, right? Like that's the bottom line of life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what feels, and we call it, oh, that's an alignment, right? And I like that. It feels good. So I'm going to go towards that, and I'm going to avoid this, right? But again, there's not meeting life with neutrality, right? It's saying, well, I have some set idea that these things are good for me and these things aren't. And sometimes that's the case, right? But when we're so attached to the way we want things to be, the minute they're not that, we don't know how to handle that, right? And this is sort of the plight of the human, right? We don't know how to deal with uncertainty. We don't know how to deal with discomfort. And more, as our society is getting softer, this is a whole other, I won't get on my soapbox, but as collectively we're getting softer and lacking in grit and resiliency, we as a collective, cannot tolerate discomfort. And the minute that we feel uncomfortable, we're looking for anything or anyone to place blame, right? And say, well, this is happening because this isn't the way I wanted it, or this person isn't doing what I need them to do, right? So ironically, like, you know, all this just shows how, again, disconnected from our fundamental truth that we are as a collective, and that we are so externally dependent. we are constantly seeking outside of us what we should be sourcing from within. And every time we do that, we're going to be dissatisfied. We're going to be let down. If we set up a life for ourselves that is contingent upon external validation or external satisfaction, or, getting our wisdom from the books and the gurus, right? Instead of going inside and connecting with ourselves and trusting in the fundamental essence of who we are and in our fundamental goodness, right? And that we don't actually need anything outside of ourselves, right? So it's just this bigger picture of this radical disconnection that I see in people from themselves. And it affects everything. It affects relationships. It affects parenting. I mean, I see this rampant. I do a lot of work with kids and teens and their parents. And I mean, it's just unbelievable, and again, as Rex was saying earlier, kids already feel somewhat disenfranchised, right? From very young, and now on top of it, you've got a culture of completely inept young men and women who cannot go out in the world and stand on their own 2 feet because they've been
But they can scroll on their phone.
Yeah, well, that's all they know how to do, right? And not to,
You're
again, I'm
so
sort of
right. You're so very right.
going off on this tangent, but it's like, again, I think that this one topic really, we see the ripple effect out in the world, and I see it daily. And I'm a mom of 2 kids too. I see it with my own kids and the culture that they're living in, and honestly, it's very frustrating to witness.
You just described your description there really it's a beautiful piece of that addiction part of life, where people, whether it's gambling, food, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, it's taking something external because you can't find the thing that you need within yourself. Yeah. And part of that is psychological. Part of that, there is a physiological part with dopamine deficiency, reward deficiency syndrome. We can go on, but it really is about, and that's what the key to recovery is to say, whatever you need, you already have, and you've always had it. And until you can rely on yourself, that if I want to feel good, I know what makes me feel good. Listening to music, do this, do that. I can do anything I want to do. I can be whatever I want to be. And it's understanding you have the power to do that. And the way you described it was beautiful. Just needing all those things on the outside because they don't exist within you, but they do. They do.
I want to add something to both of your points because I think it's important, and that is that we're conditioned to do that. You're conditioned to not pursue your dreams, to pick something, to have a backup plan, have a plan B, do something that everybody can respect and know. Be this, be that. Don't be yourself. We're conditioned to pay attention to what the church says, or the temple says, or the politicians say, or the police say, or the authorities say. So we give our power away daily to the educators in the front of the room or wherever. The danger, what you said about getting cushy and comfortable, the danger is when things get uncomfortable, if somebody says, I have the answer, and they're really a bad choice, people will flock because they go, oh, well, here's a strong person who's got the answer. I'll just go with that person. The true guru always throws you back on yourself. It never says, follow me, never says, I'm the guy, right. I'm the source, I'm the gal, I'm the person.
Amen.
Put it back on you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Barry, this is something that, a lot of people get into trouble because they gravitate towards things when they feel, that they don't have their own power. They try to leech off of somebody else's, right?
Absolutely. I mean, what I said earlier, I'll add to that because I was thinking about something as Christy was talking. When I was a lot younger, and I'm the only person on the planet that did this, I was a people pleaser. And the thing is that a lot of people are. And oftentimes it's because they're not willing to make decisions for themselves. And part of that also is, and this is one of the hardest things to do, is that we're not willing to say no to certain things. Especially with family dynamics or pressures from partnership or in business. We're in a place where when somebody says, I used to do this and this because we want their approval, we'll say yes. And so we give our power away that way. And for me, and I actually did a video posted last week about agreement keeping, because one of the biggest things we do for ourselves is we don't trust ourselves anymore because we're continually saying yes to other people and not saying yes to ourselves. So what I talked about in that video is about the challenges that we have an automatic yes in our agreement keeping. We don't say no, we don't renegotiate. And the thing is, if we don't write things down, one of the things I did back in the day before smartphones came out, I used a day planner, because I learned the lesson from David Allen, who talks about getting things done. He teaches the system for years. Is that you basically write things down, not to remember them, you write things down to forget them, because when you write them down and you forget them, you can clear your head, but you know your information's there. Now, smartphones is better because you can put alarms in there, reminders, etc., etc. So your phone becomes your tracking system, so you can remember what you said yes to. But you've got to put it in, because the challenge is we say yes to things and don't track them. And then 2 weeks later, somebody says, "Where were you yesterday? You were supposed to be at 1 o'clock." And I'm like, I didn't write it down. And so we end up feeling powerless because we screwed up. But if we do take control of our choices by first saying yes to things we want to do, say no things we can't do or we won't do, and write them down so we know what we're doing, we can start having a life that works in order for supporting of us, because we don't oftentimes put our lives as a priority in our own lives. Like, we don't take care of ourselves that way. And I've been talking about stuff that I said this last time on the show. New Year's Eve, I had a download that my message this year is going to be about self-love, but not the, oh, I love myself stuff. No, it's about the self-reflective things: self-care, self-trust, self-confidence, self-support, self-honoring, all these different things. And part of it is that we have the power inside of ourselves, and we keep seeking it outside. And the thing about it is we never learn if we keep putting it outside ourselves. We've got to take it within. You know, the story about, and I mean, we talked about on the show before about the story of the butterfly, with the kid and his dad. Basically, he's trying to, this butterfly trying to struggle to get out of the cocoon, and the kid's going to try and crack open the cocoon to let the butterfly out. Problem, if he does that, the butterfly doesn't fly, because the butterfly has to get itself out of the cocoon, and all that struggling, stress pumps the blood into its wings so it can fly. When the father told the son was like, I understand now. That's a lesson the kid can take through his life, because he understands that the power is enabling other people to have their own power versus trying to fix things where you end up disabling somebody else. So for ourselves and other people as well, it's vital we do this.
So you brought up a couple things. You said people pleasing. We were talking about that, which I find that to be a bit of a misnomer. It doesn't quite make sense to call it people pleasing, because I know I fell into that. I would say yes to everybody, but I didn't say yes because I really gave a shit about them. I said yes because I wanted them to look at me a certain way.
Approval.
So basically, people pleasing is like being an emotional vampire. I am going to say whatever I got to say so I can leech off of your feelings towards me, because I can't create my own. If you like me, I can like me. But if you don't like me, I won't like me.
You're a politician.
It's not can't create. It's not won't create for ourselves.
Maybe we should have that as a topic itself.
Oh yeah, we can talk about this. But again, just to understand and the one thing that, yes, people, as I said earlier, people pleasing for me was about seeking approval. I didn't know how to fill. I didn't know how to fill up my own approval first. I kept going looking for other people's approval, and the things about people pleasing and overcommitting, I got nobody's approval. So it never worked. You know. So exactly. So the recognition is when we, and this is the thing. The other part also is that a lot of us were raised in a situation when we say no, we're scared of being disapproved of by somebody else, because we think if we say yes, they'll approve of us. So backwards of that is that if we say no, they won't like us, they won't approve of us. The thing is, when you start keeping clear agreements and you say no more often, the funny thing is people start respecting you more, because you own your own boundaries, you own your own space, and you own your truth. That's where you get trustable.
Absolutely. Another book, 4 Agreements, if you want to read something about text. It gets you good start. It's not the end all be all of text, but it is a very good start to understanding a lot of that, and about understanding how to keep a word to yourself, more importantly than anything else. You also mentioned, I want to bring this up too, is that people putting themselves as a priority, making themselves a priority. Unfortunately, that gets twisted a lot too, because you see when people go through a growth, sometimes it could be like, well, I'm a priority, so you got to do what I need. And it's like, that's not the point, right?
No. The thing is, in a relationship, ideally, both partners take themselves as their priority. You be the best person you could be to be a better partner in the relationship. That's how it works. Not like you take priority saying, you do for me so I can feel better. It's like, no, that's back in the trap again. It's approval seeking. It's like leeching your power of somebody else, which doesn't work. Healthy people in a relationship are self-reliant, self-loving, self-approving. So they become abundant with each other and overflowing in terms of where they take care of each other. They're not giving from a lack, they're giving from an overflow. And that's the way to do it in a healthy way in every relationship.
Lynn, what are you getting out of all this, huh?
A lot of things, but it's about that time to wrap up. It's
I know.
Yeah. So, but we got 3 people. We can give them quite a bit of time to wrap it up, which is what's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody want to start their wrap-up statements?
Yeah, which is about at least 3 minutes each.
Yeah.
2 minutes each.
Oh, abundance.
Rex,
Yeah.
you ready?
Mr. Rex.
I don't know how to choose to use 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll give you 2.
I will go. No, I'll go ahead. Sure. You know, people comparison shop, and why do they do that? Because they want choice, and usually it's convenience or cost, or find the cheapest, or maybe the best quality for the least amount, or something like that. Unless you get a lot of money, then you want the most expensive things and the best things and everything else. But there's a reason that you have that comparison is because it gives you a point of choice. Well, if you understand that you can choose among tacky products in the grocery store, you ought to understand that you have a choice when it comes to yourself. You can choose to love yourself or hate yourself. You can choose to be a victim or a victor. You can choose to let circumstances drive your life or you drive the circumstances. Everything is a choice at some point if you understand that. And the best place to make a choice is in neutral, not when you're angry, not when you're hot, not when you're sad, not when you're frustrated, and even not when you're really deliriously happy and excited and all that kind of stuff. But it's also not. But also it's neutral is not the place where you think everything through. Neutral is the place where you are closest to your authentic self. And so you
Yes.
make right choices from your own intuitive self as opposed to or your authentic self instead of trying to think what is my right choice? What's the thing that I should do? You know, there are tons of people who read all the books that we suggest and everything else, but they don't have the experience of doing any of it. Like the story of the butterfly is fantastic, because it illustrates something that most people can mentally grasp. But if they don't actually grok it, as we used to say back in the 70s, they what they do is it's a nice little analogy, it's a metaphor, it's an example that they tell in church and Sunday school and elsewhere. But when they actually get it, that if you prevent the butterfly from doing what is natural to the butterfly because it's necessary for the butterfly to develop the ability to fly and the strength to do so, then you actually get that would then change or inform you as how to behave about yourself and what you need to go through in terms of hardship in order to develop or what other people need to go through. It's not so that you can sit there and go tough love it and go, well, they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Fuck them, let them find their food. I'm not going to feed them. It isn't about that, but it is about the wisdom that comes from an experience versus the the silly kind of thinking that we do that we think we have when we fill our mind with platitudes and sayings and everything else, but don't actually live them.
Yeah.
Walking the talk is far more important than talking the talk.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks,
Thank
Rex.
you,
But
Rex.
that's not to deprive anyone of the power of the analogy or the metaphor. I mean, I want to point that out because it is purposeful.
All right. Christy, what do you think? How would you like to wrap up this segment?
I'm thinking about how, when people come to me, in addition of complaining about this or that, when I ask people what they want, almost always people at any age will say, I want freedom. I want to feel free. And I tell them, the irony is you want freedom so much, but when you are constantly looking outside of yourself for satisfaction and validation, and when you are constantly putting the cause of whatever is going on internally on something outside of yourself, you're not free at all. You're tethered, right? You're tethered to other people. Your life becomes nothing more than just maneuvering yourself and manipulating yourself, right? To fit a narrative, to blame another person, to get something from outside of yourself, to do whatever it takes to get other people to notice you, approve of you, like you, whatever, right? To do that comparison shopping to fit in with someone that couldn't be furthest from freedom, right? So freedom really is untethering ourselves from everything. Yes, we are a part of this huge energy matrix that is all that is. But ultimately, we have choice about how we're going to position ourselves as a part of that. We have a choice as to the frequency that we are going to emit and transmit out there in this life, right? We have a choice about how we're going to see other people and how we're going to show up in the world, right? That's where the true freedom is, right? And so, and then related to that, if we can remember that we will always be in a state of discontent as long as we're tethered to our attachments, right? But if we can remember that the present moment, just as it is right now, is always complete, no matter what that moment looks like, right? We feel upset because we say, oh, this should be this way, this should be that way, as if the moment is lacking. And again, if we go back to the roots of who we are and what it means to be a human in this whole thing, right? And all that is, life in every given moment is complete just as it is. And when we understand that, that's when we can be content. That's when we will be free. That's when we can experience peace.
Oh, fantastic.
I
Oh,
love you.
Barry, I'm sorry. You got to follow that.
I can.
I love
So
you,
much-
Christy.
So much we covered today, and for me, there's. I mean, underscoring what Christy said, and I'll come from a spiritual perspective for a second, because I've been on a spiritual path for many, many years. Is we have unfortunately externalized our relationship with God, to be blunt, and to make it even quote worse. And I'm doing this from an outside the faith experience or expression. We've been taught that because the faiths that have been built over many, many years, the modern Western faiths, thrive that way. They have the control. They feel they have the power over us because they have the access to God. I learned, and I've had experiences in my personal development work over the years of experiencing what that feels like to be connected to that source, because it's never away from us. We forget that. And all I need to do, thankfully now, because I've had the experience a few times, is look back at those times where I remember having a direct oneness experience, where you recall that openness, blown open, knowing that wasn't just me, that was something bigger than me. It reduces everything else that I've been attached to little things, because I recognize that there's nowhere to go. There's no, and this is the biggest lesson I think I can teach anybody. There's nowhere to go to get that power. There's nowhere to be with somebody else to get that power. There's no teacher that's going to give it to you, as Rex said, absolutely, and certainly not no priest that will give it to you either. As I just forgot where it comes from. You had the power all along.
Oz. I said that earlier. Yep.
That's the thing, is that we do have that power. Now, we may not think the power we have is the right power. Well, I've got the power to run the country. I've got the power to get $1 million. Well, you don't know that. As Rex was saying, you get the chance to explore and try things out and see what happens. And yes, study with teachers who have done that for you before you, so you can say, okay, that's what they did. I can copy that. I can mimic that. I can try it my own way of doing that. You might fail, you might succeed, but at least you're doing something. But to sit and own that you don't have the power, you don't have the choice, you don't have the freedom, is the denial of your own gifts. And my advice to anybody watching this is, when you tell yourself you can't, you're lying to yourself.
That's right.
Now, let's qualify this. You may not be able to jump out of a plane and fly without a parachute. There's choices, just to be clear. But I want to make sure you get the things that you have a lot more power than you think you do. That's the one to say.
Absolutely. You want $1 million, folks? Go mow a lawn for $10. Do it 100,000 times, you'll have $1 million. If you choose not to do that, then you're not going to make $1 million. At least
That
not that way. You'll find a different way. There's power. It's not lightning coming out of my fingertips. It's not. Power to me is when it starts raining and everybody runs inside and their day is ruined. Is I can take off my hat and slide in the grass like I'm at Woodstock and sing and dance, and because I have the power to take any situation and make it what I want to make it. And that's where our power. My power is when I get to the end of the driveway, whether I turn left or right. That is the ultimate power. The power to make little choices, little things every day. And with great power comes what? Great responsibility. And it doesn't do me any good to have all this power to to live a life that I want to live and be what I want to be without me extending kindness and respect and dignity to other people, because then it's just wasted. Yeah, and that's kind of the responsibility we have, I think, is to pass that on, not to shove it down their throats, because that's what ends up happening. Oh, this is my way, let me shove it down. No, but simply, you know what? If I want to stand tall, bend down to pick somebody up and help them up, but don't tell them which direction to walk once they're on their feet. So you guys are fantastic. Lynn, final thought?
One quick.
Yes.
Yes, babe.
Is I want to say this, is you have the power to be kind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Amen.
I love and appreciate all of you guys that always show up. My voice, I'm still trying to get it back, but I love you guys, and you're right. Just showing up here and giving voice and being here, and it's as we all see it, and that's why I love this show is people being able to share their different perspectives and giving people just a little bit of other people's perspectives and collectively realizing that it's all for the greater good of those that need to know that there's other people out there that come and care and give their wisdom. And Christy, I look forward to seeing you, and hopefully you can be here with us more often on Tuesdays, because we love you here.
Too. I'm going to try. Thank you so much.
And those of you out there watching, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like the channel, to share this with your friends, and to leave comments for us. Even if you're watching a replay, we'll go back and look at the comments. But please just share this with your friends, and definitely pass the word on. And something you'd like us to talk about, a topic you want covered, let us know.
All right. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, guys. God bless.
Keeping me safe.